Good morning on the West Coast, good afternoon on the East Coast, and welcome to this week's edition of 30 Minutes to Better Business Results. We're here to help you improve your business and give you some information, some feedback, some knowledge, maybe some practice exercises that allow you to generate 3 action items this week and in subsequent weeks that allow you to move your business forward. And what we do know is that if you can identify and implement 3 action items that are a little bit different than what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, that your results will be dramatic and successful. Today we have Bill Tucker. Bill Tucker is the President of Seashore Construction. Bill, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. And so Bill, and I kind of walked you through this thing and how this works. Right? We're going to talk a little bit about you and your company and how that works. And see, we're actually going to see if we can't put together a little marketing video for this as well. And then we'll speak a little bit about what is it that you're trying to accomplish, where are some of the challenges that you have. Maybe we can demonstrate some ideas, new thinking concepts, and get you and help you to overcome or get to acquire, achieve, identify is a better word, 3 action items for you and how to take your business and move it forward. Right? So, Bill, President of Seashore Construction, how long have you been in the business? How did you get into that business?
I think I was born to be a contractor, so I haven't been able to escape it. I sat on the porch of one of the biggest developers in Orange County in 1971 and waited until they invited me in to go to work for them. So I've been in construction since I was younger and in college, and in my own business since 1980. And
so Seashore was started in 1980?
Yes.
And so that's like 34 years.
Yes.
You've seen a lot of business and construction in Orange County.
Absolutely. I was here at almost the beginning.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest changes, biggest things that you've discovered or seen over the last 30 years?
It's been an ongoing process, but I think the entrepreneurial development side of construction from the developer's point of view is completely different. And because I focused on the interior remodeling industry, the ownership of buildings and the direct management by the original owners doesn't exist. It's a larger arena of major players and institutional property management and consultant management for the projects. And it's more difficult to find my clients and get close to them.
So reaching out and challenging, finding clients is one of your big challenges.
Absolutely.
So before we get into that, and we'll talk a little bit about more of that as we go along, help me understand what you believe to be your competitive advantage. What is it that you do different or better than anybody else that's out there?
Well, I pride myself to be a relationship business. We don't try to find a new customer every single day. We want to go back and have relationships with our customers. And my most fun that I have is being the advocate of the customer, the client, and being there for him and making sure that as he's thinking through the process and leading his group to their end game, whether it's additional space or utilizing existing space more efficiently, is to come up with the ideas that my capacity as a kind of trained architectural and construction manager, I can see the building, I can see the space, and to take those people someplace that they may not have seen. It's a high each time when someone says, oh, I didn't even think about that. That never even crossed our minds. We never saw that option. And so if I can bring that to the table, hopefully that locks me into the deal and gives us a better opportunity. Early in is always best. No matter how I slice it, I do my very best to be in as early as possible in the projects and become
in the early development.
In the early development.
I mean, that's where you can add the most.
We think we're a design-build contractor better than we're a bid-build contractor. We're very competitive. We can be bid-build and play, but we prefer to take the approach of let's start at the beginning with them and work through and hopefully hold on till the end and bring them a final project.
So I want to talk about turning light bulbs on, because I think, in my business, in the coaching practice, one of the things I'm trying to do with my clients is give them some new ideas, some new concepts, some new ways to think of things that allow them to generate better solutions. And, I have a program that I call Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, and this is really all about, turning those light bulbs on. And so you're doing the same thing, right? When you're helping them come up with new and different and better solutions for their construction activity, and ideally it's probably in support of their business or what they're trying to get accomplished, right? So give me an idea, what's something that you was really on the creative side, where you turned on a light bulb for a particular client project?
Now you put me on the spot.
I am.
Totally put you on. We for Vance and Hines, who's the aftermarket builder of exhaust systems and carburation systems for motorcycles, in particular Harley Davidson. They had about a 5,000 square foot mezzanine that they wished us to construct for them in Santa Fe Springs, and that particular mezzanine was going to go into their warehouse, and we showed them how to bring it into their complex of office and make those offices part of both sides of the business. It was an engineering and development space, but I was able to facilitate the use of that space to a maximum and take up the lease of the warehouse and help them connect it to their executive offices, where engineering played pretty strongly with the owners of the company, and we connected those facilities into one unit within a single building in a two-story mezzanine and first floor engineering department addition to that building. A second client of mine at Huntington Beach, Lida, which is they're aerospace component company. They make small electronics, and they were making the main shuttle electrical loom for the shuttle. Every time the shuttle would come back down, they'd rewire the entire shuttle, and my client would build that wiring loom for the shuttle. So that kind of electrical and aerospace kind of work. And we've built for him 2 or 3 separate buildings he's owned. We've gone into those buildings. We've completely facilitated his manufacturing of silicon chips and construction of miscellaneous satellite components and these wiring looms I've mentioned. In the way we laid out his space, the way we created his access and second floor build outs.
So what's the light bulb that went on? How did you they had an idea and a concept, a business problem challenge that they were trying to overcome, and you were able to help them achieve a different result, a better result. Explain a little bit about how that worked.
Well, this client was a very intelligent and very together person, but his ability to design space wasn't the same as what I believe mine is, and my challenge was to help him get there from here, and I had to be very creative in helping him understand that, besides the fact that we had significant cultural differences. The gentleman is actually from Taiwan, born and raised there. I'm born right here in Southern California. We think a little differently, but when we got into the building, he knew his business and I knew the space, and so I was just able to bring the parts and pieces together much more efficiently than he had originally anticipated.
Right, so you talked about relationship as being a part of it, but really creativity and just kind of how you view and structure the business, asking questions, understanding what they're really trying to accomplish from a business standpoint, and then how you creatively provide those solutions that are both probably cost-effective and timely, fit within their particular budget and their time and the quality that they're looking for.
I don't know how to make the analogy to all businesses, but there's something most people do not understand space. It's a human nature thing. There's our architects and designers, engineers and contractors who get space, but my accountants don't get space. My marketing companies don't get space. They don't understand how to utilize the volume that they have, whether it's vertical or horizontal, and I believe I bring to the table a certain strength in that area that usually wins their attention, because I love it when someone says, never crossed our mind that if we did that, this whole thing opens up into something new and different.
Right, and that's fun. That's almost where the real joy comes from.
Absolutely, absolutely. You had asked me a couple of questions to make some notes on. I love the business, and it isn't about an edifice of significance. It isn't about a tall tower someplace, but it's about making people feel good about what they have and have it work the way they had hoped that it would work for them at the end of the project.
So getting back to business, before we go into the exercise that we have, one of the ways that you obviously can control you. One of the ways we talk about, how does our team deliver? And I know you've got a team behind you. You've got a team of employees and subcontractors and folks that help you deliver these projects. Share me a little bit about your top values that you require for your particular business, for your particular team. Normally integrity sits right at the top.
Oh, absolutely. Contracting's a borrowing business. Contracting's a business that requires a significant amount of trust from the client that you're going to get them where they're going. I spent 2 hours with a customer we've been working on with May on a project we actually lost, but their contractor lost $250,000 for them in the meantime, and they're back at our table so we can finish their job. And so we do our very best. Obviously, a more institutional world requires more due diligence in all ways, whether it's my financial statements, my bondability, whatever it might be, my amount of insurance. those are kind of the mechanical aspects of it that are always required in our projects today because of the sophistication of the customer.
So creativity, that kind of came out in our discussion earlier. That's a big deal.
Right.
Professionalism, due diligence, maintaining all those kinds of things. Integrity. Is there anything else that jumps up or stands out?
Well, reliability. I mean, once you're there to continually produce projects, I mean, we've produced thousands of projects. I visited with Yamaha the other day in Cyprus, and there was a recall after a turnover of management and an opportunity to come back in the building. I brought over a list of 41 projects we had completed for the client over about a 6 or 8 year period, and kind of rattled the cage a little bit because people never realized that they had trusted us that many times. They didn't call another contractor. They didn't bid us out competitively. At the end of the day, I really believe my client, who remains in retirement as my a very good friend, trusted that we were giving him a fair price and that we were doing a great job every time, and we were called back again. And so that's really where I wish to spend my time.
Yeah, trusted advisor.
Exactly.
All those parts and pieces that are associated with that. Okay, so let's go into, so we've kind of talked about your competitive advantage, what it is that you do. We talked about kind of your brand and how does that fit. And then you mentioned it early on, it's sort of the marketplace. How has the market changed? And you described that a little bit earlier in our discussion. How has the market changed? And how are you going to, well, help me understand. Just tell me the three typical challenges, constraints, things that you've got to deal with. What are those?
Well, I've got to find the clients. I mean, is that the area we're talking about?
Yeah, I think finding clients.
How am I going to find them? I've made a recent change with the business association I belong to for over 20 years because I feel like that change that you're mentioning has come to me through, for example, in the area of property management, where the original property managers might have been the son or daughter of the owner builder. They were part and parcel to the process of getting to the tenants occupying the space. Today, it's much more broken down in individual components where the development goes on in a very institutional way. Certainly in Southern California, we have a limited number, at least in Orange County, a very limited number of real development companies remaining here today. And so from there, we've just got to find the way to, more often, instead of the front door of the building where the people who work in there make decisions about construction, we've got to find our way to the back door of the construction management department and the people that are doing that. The larger real estate management companies have become the byproduct of the original companies that were developed by the need to manage the property, and ultimately through the turnover and both property ownership, receivership, and other miscellaneous debacles over the last 7 or 8 years in particular, there's been significant change. Not to mention the amount of money in the marketplace and the distress and many of the loans and things in the mid-rise and high-rise building community that we deal with.
So change happens. We could go back in history for hundreds of years, and you'll see that the change happens. Markets change, products change, and our ability to change with those affects our ability to be successful as things go along. I mean, we're not here to kind of pack up and fold up because it's not the same way. It's about creating a new solution, create a new opportunity and a new idea, and that's one of the things we want to share with you here today. So in terms of the pipeline, finding clients, that's a big deal.
Big deal.
And I'm going to go through this thing called the 4 stages of learning with you, but I'm going to do it from a prospect's or customer's perspective and see if we can take a look at it from a marketing standpoint, right? So that's one thing we'll cover. What else? Is there anything else on your list of issues and challenges that you're dealing with today, or is that just the number one thing?
Well, no, I think I'm having to rethink the place I go to find these people and find the people that are actively involved in that. I mean, obviously we've jumped down to the LinkedIn bandwagon and trying to have ourselves out there and finding new ways to connect with people on a regular basis. I got more birthday wishes this year out of LinkedIn than I got from all of my family.
You're an active LinkedIn
I have
user.
at least 1,000 connections, and I'm preparing to. I actually signed up recently for something called Link U, which is a paid college course over the year with consulting for accessing, without being a member, the entire benefits of LinkedIn, so that we can delve in it and generate in the hundreds of thousands of lead opportunities.
So LinkedIn is social media, online marketing.
Online
Right.
marketing. Haven't
Online
embraced
marketing.
the Facebook scenario. I believe my customers, I don't believe they're spending much of their time there. We feel like we have to be in a business circle and because we sell to businesses, we have no residential construction and no.
So what about a website? That's another key to online marketing.
We keep a website up all the time, and we make sure we put on the best pictures and put on the best pitch we can in that and modify regularly to keep up with the marketplace.
What about other things like email marketing, newsletter, something like that? Do you have some of those things?
No, I do not. I've not moved into the areas of blog. I feel like the day fills itself up every single day. I haven't quite figured out how to squeeze that in.
Oh yeah, frankly, that is the same experience. A lot of people are like, when the heck am I going to write a blog? Now I do, and I typically write it on Saturday mornings because it doesn't fit during the rest of the week. But it is a key component of what I do. But it is a time-consuming activity, and I have to block out time specifically for that. So let's do this. Let me show you this thing called the 4 stages of learning, and then we'll talk about that, and we'll say, listen, based on your clients, based on where you're at. So Abraham Maslow, he's the sort of the father of psychology. Young and Freud, a lot of guys back in the 60s. Maslow is most known for his hierarchy of needs, right, where the bottom part of the triangle is food, clothing, and shelter, and the top part of the triangle is self-esteem. But at the same time, and one of the more little-known facts is he was also instrumental in developing this thing called the 4 stages of learning. So I'm going to see if I can't draw it right here. So we got Abraham Maslow and the 4 stages. Right? And then I have this as an example in my on my LinkedIn profile. I actually have a video on my LinkedIn profile where I do this at a car shop. It was just kind of a fun little thing. But continuing on with this here, right? So we have this is what we call the learning curve, right? And I can thank Brian Tracy for this because Brian is the one that built this program for me to help demonstrate and share with other people what this means and how it works, right? So we start with the first stage, right? And that's over here, and that's a stage called unconscious incompetence. All right? So most people come up with another term for that. What do you think that means? Unconscious?
Well, I'm not even aware of what I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know, right? So in terms of marketing and in terms of your marketplace, there are people out there that need your services, right? But they don't know you exist, right? So they don't know that they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that you have this talent, that you have the skills, that you have this information. So there's a big group of people that are sitting here that just need to know that Seashore exists, right? And so we could come up with systems and processes that say, look, this is how we're going to advance them to the next stage, right? They're not going to become customers right away, but there's no way they're going to be customers if they don't know that Seashore exists.
Correct.
Right? And some of your other market sources, that's not the right place anymore. So we know that there's another batch of people out there that maybe would be way more that we'd like to connect with, right? And I can think of companies that aren't in some of the networking associations that maybe you've participated before, but that are still doing some construction. So how would we find who they are? How would we find where they are? How would we get conversations with them? And sometimes we have to tell them that we exist first, right? So step 1 is unconscious. And once unconscious incompetence, once somebody becomes aware of something, or once you become aware of something, right? This is a very tough spot. You can't move off this spot by yourself. You have to be stimulated by something else. But once that stimulation happens, you see an ad, you see an email, you see a social media post, you see something, you are instantly transported to the next location, which is called conscious incompetence. Right? So this means that you're not any good at it, right? You don't know much about it, but you know it exists. Right? So if we've given them, they say, oh, I know who Seashore is, right? Now, they may or may not know why we want to use Seashore or what Seashore does, and so we'll have to help them along that path, right? That's part of our marketing message material. And at this point here, though, you or whoever's listening to the message is now in charge, right? They can make a decision if they want to learn some more, if they want to be more knowledgeable, be more effective, understand more about Seashore, understand more of it. And so a lot of times what we do is we're using some online marketing material here to drive them into this particular place. And when we go to this particular place, we're going to say, listen, go to our website, go to our something else where you can learn more, right? Now, one of the things you have to really be careful of, and the next step here is called conscious competence, right? So I want to ask you a question. Why does anybody do anything? Why would they want to do something? Why would they want to change? Why would they want to learn more about something.
Well, something's arisen in their life that's causing them to have to find out something they don't have otherwise access to in their daily activities.
It would be a benefit, right?
Right,
They
absolutely.
see that there's some benefit somewhere, some way, somehow to investigating deeper, right? Now, maybe not a lot, maybe a little, and usually they will investigate in a little bit of space at a time, right? Nobody jumps in the pool. Some people do, but most people don't jump in the deep end of the pool right away. They dip a toe in the water. And we can dip a toe in the water by having them come to our website and have them give us a call and have a conversation. There's some different ways. But if we have a benefit, a strong benefit, a value proposition, then the people that are interested in our benefit have the potential to take the next step, right? And do something, right? So this is the place where we have to create some compelling message that allows them to come to the next place, right? When we get to the next place and they start to learn a little bit more and they really understand who you are, what you are, and maybe you can get a conversation, right? Then we can educate them a little bit farther on the practice, right? So the next step is something called feedback and practice, right? Where we can educate them on how to get better and more effective at what it is that they're trying to get accomplished. Now, a lot of times for business owners and people that are buying construction services, this is as far as they want to go, is conscious competence. They want to be educated enough that they can hire somebody else to do the next step, right? Because the question is, if you're now you could certainly, we could all choose to go through this practice and feedback and learn how to be an expert, but we can't do it at everything, right? And if I have a business that's already working, I don't want to be an expert at construction. This is the place where we could get you involved,
right,
and you become an expert at construction, right? So once we're here, we can make a decision about who should be going through the feedback and the practice. Should I hire somebody that already knows it, already understands it, has the value already there, or should I figure it out, right? And so some companies have teams on board that have a lot of this stuff available to them, but a lot of companies, most of them don't. Right?
I would say most do not.
Most don't. Most don't. All right. Ultimately, the next step is one called unconscious competence, right? So if you are the one that is learning this process, right, and you've gone through the feedback and the practice, then the last step here is this unconscious competence. And one of the greatest descriptions I have about moving from here to here is manual transmission car. Did you ever learn to drive a manual transmission car? How did that first week go?
Good.
Yeah? Did you stall it? Did you jump
out?
Out?
A couple times, but yeah, I was a go-kart kid, so I had some experience.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was a good driver by the time I...
All right, so for many people, but even so, you know that you've got to push the clutch in, you've got to shift it, you've got to let the clutch out, you've got to push on the gas and do all that kind of stuff. And, it just takes a little practice, right? And the car gives you feedback immediately when you do it wrong.
Sure.
And so then you're able to correct it. You say, oh, that's not how to do it, and I go on. And so that's the practice that we have there, and that's the process you have now. So depending on what it is you're trying to do, learning to drive a car was like super high importance, super high priority. And so everybody kind of goes through the model and goes through the process. But for a lot of people, that's just not what they want to do, right? And the process of learning the construction industry, the construction business, is a heck of a lot more than learning to drive a manual transmission car.
Absolutely, and it's become more complex today than ever before.
Yeah, so what are some of the complexities that you run into today compared to, say, 10 years ago or even 20 years ago?
The recession was the greatest thing for the public entities to rewrite the book. That's part of the issue. And obviously the book has been written by the Congress and our local state agencies in terms of ADA and Title 24, the access laws and the energy laws are hugely different than in days past. The cities are so much more thorough in everything they evaluate when you submit to them a set of documents for construction. And what used to come out in 3 or 4 pages now comes out in 20 to 40 pages of plan documents. So that by itself, the detailed orientation of every plan that we see is so riddled with opportunities for errors, mistakes, and dropping the ball. Huge. It's incomprehensible that every word, people rest on every word, and sometimes those words are in conflict within a set of documents, and to make sure that doesn't happen on any kind of significant scale basis is real important in the course of getting a project in on time, under budget.
Navigating those hurdles. I mean, I know in a younger part of my life, I could work on a car, right?
Oh, gosh.
Working on a car today, out of the question, right? I know that I could put a bunch of sticks together and put drywall on it and kind of come up with a room. Actually built one in a garage of mine, built an office in the garage one time. And, I didn't really go down the whole permit process, but, I was kind of okay. But if I had to go navigate the kinds of things that are necessary today, right, let alone building a commercial building or a commercial project, that would be insanely risky.
Well, and sometimes it would be easier to build a building from the ground up. What we do, walking into somebody else's building, someone else's design, can't find original set of documents to justify what has to be done now, and so we have to kind of reinvent that wheel through the design that we create, and people don't see the problematic developments that occur during that process.
Right. There's just a ton. Okay, so let's take a look back at this here, right? And say, so understanding this and understanding using this as your customer, right? How do you intend to let more people know that you exist?
Well, I tell you, I'm struggling with it. I've begun to play a little more regularly with the LinkedIn aspects of my life. I'm considering now a couple different new networking associations that are industry specific, real estate, obviously, commercial real estate orientation, both retail and brokerage orientation, as opposed to industry that I'm in, where I can pull from outside the immediate circle.
So your target is, essentially business owners, decision makers that have property that need buildings and stuff to be able to make or produce or house their product or service.
And quite often comes from the transaction of purchase and sale of property also. So that's a very active place to be standing at the time someone purchases a new building or they decide to transition that building to a new tenant of some sort. Okay,
so we could reach out to those particular groups and make them aware in some form or fashion, a piece of paper, online media, something that says this is who we are, this is what we do, right? And then how are we going to move them? How would you move them from here to there? And the reason I say this, I'm thinking of a particular client that I have that has a fairly big warehouse facility up in La Mirada. Now, they're not a part of any of these groups and associations that you've mentioned so far, and they don't know that you exist. Right?
Correct.
So how would you let them know that you exist?
Well, assuming that this is a building owner, then there's also the assumption that they have facilities managers of some sort. So that's one reason I belong to the International Facilities Management Association, trying to contact those people that are in play in buildings for their corporations or companies to manage the facility around which they're...
So they have a guy that is in charge of managing a facility, but he's not a member of...
Yeah, and otherwise it's a lot of owners. Most of these guys came up anyway through the ranks. If they're, they may be 10 or 15 employees, they're not going to probably have a facilities manager.
Yeah. So how do you reach that person? How do you connect them?
Difficult, in my opinion. It's difficult.
Okay. Where do they hang out?
I don't know.
All right. So how are you going to find out where? How would you find out where these different groups hang out? The different business. So they are not a part of the IFMA association, but they are a part of other associations.
IFMA gives me the opportunity because I became a regular there. I have clients and customers that I have a obviously referral basis on, that I can use that as a lever to get to a new client who is an owner or facilities manager of his properties, and at that point try to convince him that I am a viable resource for all kinds of things to think about his building.
Because I'm still at the same place here where I was trying to figure out how are you going to find, just call his name Rick for right now, who's in charge of facilities for this large warehousing plant in La Mirada. How would you find him?
It's difficult if there's not a transactional activity where there's some connection that I can be brought to without knocking on his front door.
Okay.
I can find lists. There are lists with tens of thousands of people who supposedly own buildings. I still receive magazines from the guy that owned my house 20 years ago for fishing boats. And I just feel like a lot of those lists, unless I've actually get my hands on them, I'm very concerned that they're not effective.
So if you could get a good list, a better list, that might be an approach to identify some of the.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that you might take forward and say, listen, how do I find more of these people, right? And so whether it's address lists or email lists or anything of that sort, that's certainly a possibility. You could just decide to go up to La Mirada and you could ask me and say, who is that? You could ask me for an introduction. I'd be happy to provide that to you. And you could ask everybody else for an introduction to whoever they know. That's fine. Or once you know where that is, you could then go knock on doors, or maybe have somebody come drop off a flyer about Seashore Construction, because that way they know who you are. Simply trying to advance them from this place to this place. Right? Once they're to this place here, if we've done that, we've got maybe a little flyer or a brochure or an email announcement or something of that sort, right? Then we can talk about how do we compel them to would benefit the most from your services.
Well, one of the reasons I mentioned that we like working with one customer over and over because we're in their daily activity place. We're not like a janitorial company or something like that that's in the project every day, and when something pops up, they're going to call us because we're already, there's been a spill, you got to go fix it.
Right.
So we have to be consistent because we're waiting for that opportunity that may not be on their books for 2 years or years after our contract.
Right.
Okay, and then how to continue that.
Here's the tough question, right? Because we've said that the market and the processes you're going with today are not necessarily. I think we had a little microphone issue. Looked at my producer JB there to make sure something happened right, but it looks like he's fixed it. So today, the marketing activity in your process and your system is not as effective as it was before. That's part of the challenge.
Not at all.
And so your job at this point is, what can I do differently? So that's where the 3 action items come up with. So 3 action items based on this new look at this kind of thing. What are 3 action items that you could take to advance your business as far as finding, targeting, acquiring new opportunities?
Well, currently, I want to move my, in my little initial efforts I've been going through the last year or so, move my LinkedIn connections one more notch forward from where I connected with them. I did not take time with everyone to respond back to their response to me and acceptance. So I maybe could have covered some more ground in that. That's very time consuming. Need to decide how to handle that. I haven't automated that.
A nice, simple system and process.
Yeah, exactly.
Reaching out to 1,000 people, that might be, if you had to do it one at a time, would be kind of crazy.
But I was very specific. I mean, it's hard today to always land Orange County because you accidentally land San Francisco or Houston. But I've tried very hard to target my connections.
Okay, so if you talk about LinkedIn, right?
Right.
And what is it? I mean, is this something where you need to? They know who you are. They know who Bill Tucker is, right? Have you set up a Seashore company page?
No, not separate from my personal page.
Okay, so they may not really understand. They know Bill Tucker, but they don't necessarily understand Seashore Construction. So we could use LinkedIn to start to make that connection.
Exactly.
Right? And then we could use it to help them understand why you're the guy, you're the person, that should be. How would you help them do that? How would you, once they understand that Seashore Construction exists, how would you compel them to want to learn more about your business?
Well, they've got to get a little bit of the story, but I presume pretty pictures and the right byline or two could get a hook set. And I think we have to just continue to do that. I'm not exactly sure. I may need some support in that area.
Well, one of the things we might do is we're gonna build a video out of this, right? And so now you have a video marketing tool, right?
True.
And when we talked about your competitive advantage and your brand and all the different things that you do, I mean, those are the things that somebody might really be. That might be what makes them say, "Listen, I need to go talk to Bill."
Sure.
Right. And then we briefly talked about, how do I get better? Because the opportunities aren't maybe as frequent as they used to be. And we're talking about getting more frequent, getting more opportunities as we go along. But, how do I get better at making sure that I'm the right solution, right? Because when you offer the best solution to the client or the prospect, that's when they often realize that you're the person that they should contract with. You're the one, right? So how are you going to work on the delivery of providing the best solution to your opportunities, the ones you have today and the ones you have?
Well, I think we need to use all avenues that still make sense. I know that I still believe direct mail can be an effective way to get something different because I'm getting a lot less mail on my desk, and maybe sneaking in a piece of mail here or there once a year as part of a 4 or 5 hit program would be one of the ways to do it. I believe the email, there are some issues with that. Obviously, we're all got to blow right through some things sometimes and skip over it. Although with the right titling and the right information and the catch line, at very least, if there's anything on their plate, it would cause them to remember and open if there's something immediate in their future. So I want to make sure that I'm dealing with that, which right now we have attempted a couple startups and we haven't been too effective. So we're we're still working on that, and I know you've coached me a little bit in that area, and it may be a manpower issue because we have taken ourselves down to a very lean fighting team, and set time to do these things. We either need to outsource it inexpensively, or we need to get a team together internally that can pull this together for us.
So we can take that conversation at another time, really, sort of how do I arrange my day and my time to be able to do these new things, right? Because it's not like you've got hours that are just available to tap into. In fact, most people don't have hours to just tap into. It's really, the challenge is, what am I going to stop doing? What am I going to do less of so that I can start doing this next thing? But the three things that you talked about doing really were expanding your LinkedIn activity. How do I move them from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, and maybe all the way to conscious competence? How do I move them to the point where they really know who I am, what I do, and how do I do it? And how can I build a system and a process that would actually make that effective and be and efficient, right? Because we can't spend days doing that kind of thing. So expanding on LinkedIn. You mentioned direct mail. It's another great opportunity because I think that it's making a comeback, right? It's a combination of things, right? It's social media, it's email marketing, it's direct mail, and it's not any one thing. We don't know what is going to trigger somebody to connect. Right?
Well, a pretty picture postcard can be pretty effective, and I've found that to be, I've gotten a good response in the past on that. I think number 3, which I want to make sure you don't miss, is just expanding my networking, physical networking, where I go out and pass cards, and that's mostly but targeted places. So if I were
pass cards and collect cards.
And collect cards, obviously, but in very targeted ways with groups that whether I want to join them or not, or just pay the extra $25 for lunch to make sure I get in the door a few times a year to network with people in those groups for their meetings and what have you. I'm looking very strongly at 2 or 3 of those right now that I will participate in as much as possible.
So 3 different ways to begin to expand opportunities for your pipeline.
Yeah, I don't believe billboards are going to work for us. I don't think that's the answer. Just, but I do think we have to touch palms with people to be able to make this work. And if I can do it electronically, obviously that's the least expensive and least time-consuming. But I'm going to have to go out and press some palms with some people. Yeah.
So accountability. That's the last part of our discussion today. Accountability, right? This is a change. This is different, right? We habitually slip into our comfort zones and things that we've always done. So how are you going to hold yourself accountable for getting these things?
Or it confuses the hell out of me. I don't want to put myself under too much pressure, but it's something that definitely needs to be done. I punish myself quite often for not accomplishing what I want to do, and I try to come back and correct that. And I'm just going to have to set up some parameters that help me understand. I was on the phone at 8 o'clock this morning with one of my best friends telling me, "Are you making your calls yet?" Because we've got to set aside the time, and we're practicing together with a mentor that I have that would allow me to be able to do something of that category, to stay on my tracks and make sure that I'm reaching out to people at the best times of day and during the best business hours of the day every day.
All right, so we're going to make a little marketing video. We're going to try one of those for you because we got a lot of really good stuff from you today. And then I've got your 3 action items, and I'm going to encourage you to write those down and send those to me. And I'll follow up with you next week before the show, and we'll find out how you're doing on those action items. So we can tell the rest of our readers and our audience and our viewers how you're doing on your action items. Because this accountability thing is one of the crazy things. We say we're going to do something, and we don't do it. We give ourselves a free pass all the time. So I'll offer my help and my assistance in that accountability model. So, Bill, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. For all of you that are out there, thanks for joining us today, and I appreciate that you spent some time with us. If you have any questions, you can certainly provide those or ask us those. You can go to our website, www.businesswith.com, and use the Contact Us feature to ask us questions. You can send emails to John at businesswith.com. That's the email address. It's been on the show. Contact us form on the BusinessWith website. Until then, hope you got a lot of good information. Good luck at coming up with your best ideas and keeping yourself accountable for those. And we'll see you next week for 30 Minutes to Better Business Results next Thursday at 10 o'clock. Thanks again.